Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this awesome LinkedIn Live. This is streamlining your spend management now. This live, we're going to explore some challenges that finance teams face, so specifically around spend management. We're going to look at some of those spend processes that you guys are working through, some of those headaches and frustrations that you got. We're also going to talk about gaining some real-time visibility into tracking spend, managing budgets, and making just better decisions around your spend. And the third piece, we're in finance, man. We have to talk about compliance. We have to talk about how important that is. So we're going to touch on that throughout this entire LinkedIn Live. We're going to share practical insights, real world examples to help you optimize your spend and some key takeaways, some housekeeping things for you. If you got questions, feel free to drop that in the comments. We have those posted up right here. Share some feedback. We're going to be asking questions throughout. We like to keep this engaging. So welcome to this live. Let's start introductions. Starting off with me, my name is Chris Ortega. I'm the CEO at Fresh FPA, which is a global fractional CFO and advisory service company. And we help SMBs grow with financial clarity and confidence. And my most esteemed guest, my fellow Super Saiyan himself. We are brothers in arms. Sandrine, introduce yourself to everybody, brother.
I appreciate that, Chris. Thanks for having me on. My name is Sandrine Fonareta. I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing at Paylocity, which just acquired Airbase, so a spend management tool. Previously, I used to be an accountant and in the world of accounting and finance. I worked as a corporate accountant, worked at an auditing firm, and worked at the Canada Revenue Agency. So I'm your Canadian friend up north in Toronto, Canada. And I'm excited to talk to everybody and talk to Chris about how companies are managing their spend. Just from my own personal experience and talking to hundreds of customers at my time at Airbase with what companies are doing from SMB and mid-market organizations and up to early enterprise with what they're doing to really take control of their business and be the strategic forces and drivers of their business going forward.
Absolutely, man. We did the prep call before, man, and we're huge Dragon Ball Z fans. I got my Vegeta right off to the back. Want to kick off this conversation. Let's get right into it. I know we're going to tackle a big conversation. We're going to have a lot of great discussion today. Sandrine, when you think about what's the biggest pain that you think finance teams have specifically around spend management?
Yeah, totally, Chris. I think there's a lot of pain, but I think the biggest pain that I really, when I speak to controllers, CFOs, accounting managers, is across the organization. We're supposed to be supporting the organization. The biggest pain that I see is spend culture, right?
Ooh.
The big thing is, and there's so much of this stuff, people are investing in technology. They're thinking, I need to invest in technology to solve my problems. None of that actually will go solve your problems if you do not have a proper spend culture within the organization. And if you don't have the support from the entire organization, all the business groups, and the adoption of whatever you're doing to control the spend in your organization. If you don't have your teams adopting whatever you're implementing, nothing is going to happen. None of the value will ever come to fruition. So I think that's the biggest challenge for many organizations. They may have the right intent, Chris. They say, look, I got a problem with how I manage my AP. I run 70% of my dollar volume through my accounts payable process. Or it might be expense management, all that long tail spend. Maybe, Chris, you're out there with a customer, you're spending money on coffee and whatever else it is. How do you manage all of that? And corporate card spending and procurement. But the biggest challenge, I think, is that change management, that spend culture that needs to be instilled across the organization.
I love when you talk about spend culture, and I want to dive deep into that because I think that's so important. And the reason why it's so important is traditionally in finance teams, right? Coming from my accounting, my finance background, even clients we work at Fresh FP&A, you have this tension between finance. We're like the number police, right? Like people look at us and they're like, "Oh my, if finance is coming to me, they're gonna cut my budgets, they're gonna take away my money." So when you talk about breaking the bridge, and also in spend culture as well too, when you look at the functional areas, you look at marketing, you look at sales, you look at operations, you look at HR, etc. In the business, they're like, well, this is my spend. Why does finance have to come in and dabble with this is what I need to spend? Why can't I control it? So what's like your practical tip to give people to say, hey, finance, don't come into the business commanding spend, come into the business to create that collaborative culture around spend. What are some of the tips and tricks that you've seen around that?
You hit the nail on the head. And I think this is a big part of why I'm excited to be in this space, because when I was practicing as a former corporate accountant, I felt like a lot of the work that me and my team were doing was in the back office, right? Quote unquote, and not being actually strategic partners within the different business groups that we all want to be, right? And that's what we all strive to do. And so having that actual positioning the accounting and finance team as a strategic partner to enable the marketing team to be successful, enable the sales team to be successful. What we want is marketing to be able to spend the dollars to help drive leads for the business, but to do it in a way where we have visibility and control and can ensure compliance. We want the sales team to go out and have those conversations with prospects, take them out to dinners, but we want control over that. We want to make sure there's an audit trail responsible. We want to know that there's the proper approval workflows in place. So at the same time, we're managing really two sets of stakeholders. One, the business as usual, we have to go ahead and make sure what we sign up for, that we're controlling our finances, that we are compliant with all of the regulations, that we're IFRS compliant, we're focused on generally accepted accounting principles. We have all of that stuff baked into what our processes should be. But at the same time, we can't lose focus. What are we here for? We are here to take that strategic role to help ensure all of the different business groups that we help to support are driven to success. And finance and accounting plays a big role in that. Because, I think what we saw, it feels like COVID is a long time ago, but
Yeah.
in some ways it was like last year or something, that the timing is still all messed up. But teams need to be able to dial back their spend and understand where are they spending at a moment's notice. But at the same time, they need to be able to unlock that ability to spend to grow. Especially what I see, Chris, in competitive markets where businesses are really fighting for that market share. They need to be able, when they see an opportunity, unlock the ability to spend for their teams to grow the business and take ownership and win in a market. But you can't lose that visibility and control. And that's why I think a lot of teams, when they're thinking about, look, I want to operationalize this, I want to invest in technologies and tools and processes to scale my organization to allow for that success. But that's why I mentioned this critical point. You can have all of that in the world, but if you don't have the adoption and the buy-in from across the organization into that spend culture, none of it will actually give you fruit.
Yeah, I love that. And for me, I think it's like, Dave, thanks for your comment on this, man. Like changing culture and key is one of those habits, right? And I've always seen this too. And typically where you see a lot of the friction in the business is like the sales and marketing team when finance is working with them, right? It's like listen, I've seen those $10,000 dinners for $1,000 MRR clients. And I'm like, make this make sense.
Right.
But I love your point about we have to collaborate, right? We have to move away from that traditional mindset of finance controlling the business. Like we have to be the financial stakeholders. We have to make sure we have the fiduciary responsibilities of managing the company. But this also, sometimes you got to be able to make those decisions. And this is where I challenge finance, accounting, controller, FP&A people when you're looking at this, come at it from a collaborative perspective, right? Come at it from a perspective of how can I help you, not how can I take away from you, right? And for me, that's always been something when I've led finance teams and even clients that we work with at Fresh FP&A, that's where it's like, I want spin to give us, like you hit it right on the head, that visibility, right? And I love how you broke it down in COVID. When COVID happened, it was that opportunity where spin was just anybody. It was like the Oprah show where it's like you get a free license and you get a free license and you get this and spin was you got whatever you needed because businesses needed to make that investment.
Right.
But now coming away from that, it's that opportunity to say, well, I know sales and marketing spent their spin on stuff, right? I know there's tech, there's probably agreements, there's contractors sitting out there that we have no idea about, and that ownership sits with them. How can we all come together to say, how can we make better decisions around the data that we're looking at? And it's not to come in and say, hey, I'm going to get rid of your Slack and Zoom and Teams because you can't have 3 different systems. That's right. It's asking the question to say, hey, out of these, which one is the most important to your business? Which one is valuable for you, right? Which one is making your team feel connected and collaborative? Making it that process and changing it from commanding, that's where it really changes the game, man. And that's where it puts finance in a role of saying, hey, I want my finance partner to be involved in my business versus now it's like, Keep finance away. Keep them over in the corner. Keep them in their spreadsheets.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important for any finance leader to think about, like, look, I'm in marketing now. Okay. The marketing team, you shouldn't expect that the marketing team should understand you should be making it as easy as possible for them to get their job done while you retain that visibility and control in the business. I'll use this as an example. I think back in my day, I was chasing after all of these invoices and receipts. It was a crazy amount of work. And honestly, it was no fault to my sales and marketing team. It was disconnected. We didn't have proper processes in place. They were like, is there a procedure document that I should be reviewing? Like, how do I go ahead and what GL category do I select for these expenses? The processes of 10, 15 years ago, and unfortunately many organizations still have these very manual processes, add so much friction to the organization because you don't want your teams focused on this stuff. Like, there's this stat recently, Chris, that an average employee spends 46 hours a year creating expense reports. Like,
wow,
that's just wasted time and productivity. What if you could just take all of that time back and that salesperson can focus on getting that new prospect? That CSM can focus on take that 46 hours to improve the upsell and cross-sell into the existing customer base. The marketing team can focus on more time on events, more time generating leads. So that's where I think that's the exciting part, right? For this new generation of finance and accounting teams is you can take a strategic angle within the organization and have a seat at the strategic decision-making table on how do you go ahead and really operationalize and scale your business for success. And that's more important than ever in a time where it's not growth at no costs. It has to be growth that's manageable and cost efficient. And so that's where a strategic partner in today for accounting and finance teams to go in to understand how you can pull those operational levers to drive that strategic value within the business across all of your different types of spend. Whether that's like, with AI-powered touchless expense reporting, where all you have to do as an employee now is just take a picture of the receipt, and you have technology through historical information, generative AI, and OCR fill the entire expense report for you. So like, that's what I love. I just came back from a conference. It was like 4 months ago. I had a bunch of receipts. All I did was take a picture, recycle, take a picture, recycle, take a picture, recycle. I didn't even think about it. At the end of the conference, I went into Airbase. I just said, okay, create the expense report. All of the details are filled in. Even the line item of why I had this expense. Oh, Sondran was at Starbucks having this coffee. It's all drafted for you. So I spend less time focusing on this manual work, and I spend more time doing what I'm supposed to be doing, supporting the sales team at a conference, supporting marketing activities, etc. And that's where I think that's the exciting part for me when I speak to customers, is like they get to now take a step into the strategic decision-making and operational role within an organization to help scale their business.
I love that, man. And like, for all those finance, when you were talking about that, I'm like, my eyes are going to ROI, right? You talked about 46 hours a year, right? Yeah. So finance people, let's do the math. This is where we're great, right? 46 hours a year, if you take that from a person, right? And that's a, $100,000 role of a person that's doing, right? That 46 hours times the fully loaded cost at an hourly rate of that person, that's what it's costing you in the business to do this manual work. And you just gave a real life use case, and I love it, right? Taking pictures, and this is normal stuff, like taking pictures on your phone to do it and just like have it automatically set up to get that line item detail that you don't have to go back and remember. Oh yeah, I went to that sushi restaurant with Chris and we had some baller sushi, but what are we talking about from a business perspective? You can type that in there. I see that Airbase even has like geo fencing to know, like, when you're in certain locations, it's like, hey, you're here, so I know you had this trip to San Francisco. You've got these charges here. Are they related? And now think about that 46 hours. If that's cut down in half, right? And you can go to your leaders, you can go to your salespeople, you can go to your marketing people, you can go throughout the organization and say, I have a tool and solution that is going to help you be more efficient, focus on what you're passionate about. And if we look at it from a productivity perspective, from an ROI productivity perspective, we're going to save money.
Exactly.
That's golden star for finance, man. Like, we are saving the business money. We're not about, and that just gets to our first point. where we're not talking about controlling the business. We're actually contributing to the business. We have a tool. It's easy for everybody. It's technology. It's AI. It's OCR. It's geofencing. All these hot technologies all wrapped in one to say, hey, business, go be great in what you're great at. Let us be great in what we're great at. And let us have a tool that we can meet in the middle that makes everybody collaborative.
And what did we
Fire.
say at the very beginning? Spend culture was the biggest problem, right?
Boom.
Chris, if you're going to tell me I'm the marketing person on the team and you're saying, oh, Sandra, yeah, you have to do all this correctly, it shouldn't be on me to understand the rules. It should be baked in. The standard operating procedures, the rules around what I can reimburse, what I can spend on, needs to be just built into the system. It needs to be super simple for me. It's the responsibility, I think, of everybody now in the office of the CFO to think about how do they make it as simple as humanly possible for their organization to actually adopt the product that they're using. If it's not simple, Chris, I'm sorry, it's probably not going to work out for you, right? Like, I need simple, especially in a world today where in 2025, every app on your phone, the best in kind of consumer design and technology, I require. If I can't figure this out in 2 seconds, I always use this example, Chris. God bless my mom. I love my mom. If my mom can't figure it out, then you have a problem. My mom needs to be able to figure it out, right? Intuitively. And if she can do it, then you're going to have a lot less friction in getting that spend culture within the organization because it's just so easy. You just made it super simple and easy for me. And what's that going to do? It's going to make you that strategic partner within the business. People are going to love you. At the same time, wink, wink, you're going to get that entire approval workflow chain built in. You have all of that. Your audit trails all captured. Everything's being coded and categorized properly. It's being synced into your ERP. So you have that for internal and external audit purposes. So you're getting the best of both worlds with a technology that is simple and easy to use for every aspect of your organization and not just your end users, Chris. Like, I think I spent most of my time, oh my God, vendors coming to me and saying, where's my money? Where's my money? Where's my money?
Yeah.
It's not just the sales and marketing team. It's vendors. It's your IT team who needs to approve, let's say, software spend. It's your legal team that maybe needs to redline contracts and recurring spend that's happening across the organization. It's all of the different business groups. And so that's where the exciting part is, because spend just doesn't touch accounting and finance.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. It touches every aspect of the organization. And that's where the immense value of the strategy can be pulled and the scalability of the operations of the office of the CFO.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And I think this is a great segue. You've talked about this a couple times. You've hit on it a couple times talking about how we need to move away from like the tactical and be more strategic inside of finance. I've been preaching this from the mountaintop for decades now, is we have to get out of that. And here's the thing. You see it in the broader market. So I'm going to give like statistics that I know. The number of new accounting and finance professionals in college is gone down double digits the last 5 years, right? Yeah. Fact number one. Yeah. Fact number two, the number of new CPAs across the board has been a double-digit decline for the last 5 years, right? And one of the things that I see, because I connect with a lot of colleges, I just was at the Kelley School of Business at IU this past weekend, talking with some Kelley School students and some other students and talking about it, is they don't want to be in the like, I don't want to, hey, I don't want to have to chase down and you have to send me a picture of your, dinner that you took. And then I have to print that out and I have to staple it to some paper and like,
no one wants to do that.
Nobody wants to do that. No. Nobody wants to be in those like, imagine that, like there's still, and here's the crazy thing. There's still organizations and there's still teams and there may be people in there. Drop in the chat if you're still doing your T&E manually, right? Like that's crazy. Yeah. So my question talking about this balancing the tactical and strategic, why do you think finance teams struggle to move from tactical to strategic partnership inside their teams? Why do you think they struggle with that?
Yeah, like I can speak from my perspective too on this. I think a lot of the struggle is like, look, there's this terminology, month-end close, obviously. The reality is we know month-end close is just a constant thing, right? You're always thinking about month-end close. So I think it's like, it's the weight of all of the kind of work that's being delivered to the accounting and finance team where they often struggle to say, okay, how do we get out of this and really change it? I think that's why you need in terms of leadership, let's say the controllers of the world, the VP of finances of the world, CFOs, you really have to start taking and making those bets on technology solutions to help solve for a lot of these issues, to help scale your team. Like the reality is, not only in like your current business as usual process, and you think about what is the volume of what we're doing today, but you have to think about, okay, what am I going to need to do in like 1 or 2 years as this company grows? Like, it's not going to be sustainable for my team for us to continue this at this current pace. And that means I'm going to have to hire more people, right? To do the work that's manual and less impactful. So, and that's a perfect opportunity. I speak to so many customers where they get to this point where, unfortunately, it's taking the time to get to a point where they see this inflection start to happen within their business. Yeah. Then they start to question, okay, wait, what we're doing right now is not really going to scale for us. And so that's one moment, Chris, where I think a lot of people are like, wow, I really have to evaluate the things that I'm doing right now. The other moment is unfortunately, we've seen these stories where there's a big break in internal control. The Jacksonville Jaguars, I think it was one of the internal members of the accounting and finance team took $25 million out on a virtual card because they didn't have proper approval workflows. Or the other story of that company where the controller came into a meeting and there was 9 deep fakes of their executive team, and he approved a payment for it was like $20 million.
Jeez.
So, and it takes, unfortunately, those moments for then people to realize, oh my God, we had a huge gap in our internal controls and our processes in place. And I don't want anybody to experience that. And so what I think a lot of people have to do is like, look at the state of your current business and internal controls. Are you providing and are you actually living up to the fiduciary duty that you have to control the organization's funds and the money and have proper steps and approvals and workflows in place to ensure that that's going to be possible? Like, and I think a lot of companies, Chris, too, like, are looking at, SOC 2 is a big part of internal control testing is another aspect of it, right? You think about generally accepted accounting principles. Accounting is really, when you think about it, is making sure that you have that built-in control system inside your organization so that you don't have these bad things happen. So I think those are the two kind of trigger points that I've seen, Chris. And unfortunately, that's why I think for a lot of people, they're still stuck on the manual process and the ways of doing things. But the opportunity cost that's lost is they are not focused on being strategic partners to the business to help drive additional growth, whether that's from marketing, revenue growth, sales growth, right? That's the missed opportunity that's being at hand right now.
Absolutely, man. And I love Albert. He said, if you're still doing manual expenses process, it's because you don't want to use a corporate card. Like, seriously, like, yeah, you're still doing that manually. There's opportunities. And for me, I want to share, I think why finance has that difficulty moving from tactical to strategic, right? And I've struggled in this. I had to make the leap just like a lot of accounting, finance, controllers, FP&A people on this call had to do, right? And it comes down to your comfort. A lot of times finance, we're very linear thinking people. We are comfortable and we have clarity when we're inside of our Excel sheets, when we have to have the business follow these like steps. We love it to be where it's self-contained and we can follow it, right? But if you think about moving to that strategic level, here's the thing. What got you to be a great staff accountant, controller, manager of FP&A, manager of finance, that's not going to get you to be that CFO, that strategic partnership level. Because here's the reason why. Here's the reality. Here's the reality for everybody, right? When you go talk with when we work with CEOs, owners, and founders and all different levels outside the finance organization, they don't even care about our technical expertise. That's like expected out of finance and accounting people. When I talk with sales, when I talk with CROs, when I talk with CHROs, COOs, CEOs, when I'm dealing with people outside the office of the CFO and working collaborative and being that strategic partner inside the business, your technical and tactical skills are like, that's not gonna like get you a seat at the table and keep you there, right? But if you're able to, as we talked about, drive collaboration, that's a skill set in and of itself. And when you think about that, that is challenging people to say you have to move outside of your comfort zone, your ASC documents, your US GAAP, your ASC 606, all these different things where you're most comfortable. And you got to get out in the business and say, hey guys, like, I see that we overspent on our travel budget. Not what happened, what's going to be. We got to, it's like, help me understand why that happened. What in the business changed? Like, what in the business did we make assumptions on, or how did we go about making this change inside the business? So it's coming from a place of not being that calculator, that comfortable calculator. It's being that collaborative partner that's coming to the table to say, I want to understand why. And I think a superpower that I want to give as a practical tip for everybody to make that shift from being that tactical leader to that strategic partner, this number one tip: go to your sales and marketing team. I know we talk about sales and marketing a lot. And go ask them and go understand. We're early in the year in February, and say, hey, what are the opportunities, challenges, frustrations, and things that you see coming down that I can help you with? That's a superpower for you to be able to do that, right? And maybe it's coming and looking at it and say, hey, here's what our spend was. Here's what our CAC was. Here's everything we're looking at. How can we work together to make this better? That's an entire different mindset to go into that collaboration, that connection, that clarity that you want to bring to the organization. And what better way to do that when you have confidence in the numbers, right? Like when you're managing spend outside in so many different areas, and you've got this Amex card and you've got this bank account that goes to here, and you're trying to take this chaos and bring it to clarity, right? You don't want to spend the time manually do that. Why not bring a technology that gets you 80% there? And now you can focus on the collaboration with the business, the communication with the business, and bringing that clarity to the business. That is what helps you go from being a tactical finance person that is like, hey, that's a great finance person. They give me great Excel documents or great reports, to I want them part of how we think about the business, how we think about our functional area, and how they can help complement. To me, that is one of the biggest changes that accounting and finance people can make. And you can do that now. It's nothing stopping you. You don't need a CPA. You don't need an MBA. You don't need a degree, right? Go in and take that leap of faith to start connecting inside the business. That would be my practical tip to kind of help those people.
Totally. And I think like one of the biggest, we talk about visibility and control a lot. I think one of the biggest things when these teams invest in solutions, the biggest struggles that I had in having these strategic conversations was like, if I'm a marketing leader, I'm a sales leader, or you're looking at your CEO, like how much are we spending to our budget, right? Like how much of that spend's happening? And I think for a lot of times, like it was very difficult because you're having to spend on an Amex card. You have some spend on, let's say, an expense solution here. You have some spend that's being, invoices backed by a PO. And to bring all that together, I always lack the clarity of like, okay, look, I just need to know how much did I spend in totality for marketing against my budget? And so when you actually have a solution, by the way, that brings together all of that spending, right? Whether it's expense reports, it's bills, it's corporate cards in one view in real time, and then you have that ability to have those conversations. So I could just log in into a solution like Airbase, see how is all my spend going across the business. Oh, I've spent this much on this vendor. Click into it, see the entire history of that spend, right? Investigate who approved it. What is the reason for this spend, right? When did we pay this vendor? How did we pay this vendor? Okay, it's synced into our ERP. Like having that type of like overall view into your business at a moment's notice for all your stakeholders, marketing, sales, your leadership team, to go in and understand what's happening in the business, then be able to drill down at a granular level, like incredibly in real time, without having for your accounting and finance team to bring all the data together, stitch it. I've made lots of mistakes, Chris, when I did this myself. And
Facts.
Humans make mistakes. You have to work in a world where you're using process automation and tooling together to bring this information, which is some of the most critical information you can bring. You're bringing this to your strategic stakeholders to make critical business decisions. The data has got to be accurate. You got to make sure that data is correct. And so having a solution together that brings it all together for you, cuts all that time away from the consolidation, and allows your team to have those valuable conversations, that's as impactful as you could be.
Absolutely, man. And I loved your point on the centralization of it and like being able to track it real time, right? That's always been a struggle. Like you may have your travel solution, right? And you got that managed. You got your credit card somewhere else. You got your vendor management process somewhere else. You got payroll something else. You got all these big areas of the business that are scattered, different point solutions, and you're like, hey, I'm trying to bring it all together. And here's the other thing, like the speed of which to be able to make these decisions, right? Like business is fast. Definitely when you're SMB, 100 to 1,000 employees, you're making decisions pretty quickly to be able to do that.
That's
And
right.
you want to have the most complete and accurate picture. And I've had those times. I've been in those situations where I'm like, man, I pulled the wrong report from our payroll, which is 80% of our expenses. I didn't include this payroll code, and I missed like, you know, and I'm sitting there struggling, like, how am I going to have this conversation? We just talked for a whole hour, and I missed like 20% of our company spend because I was moving too fast, right? And
That's totally right.
people struggle with that, right? And you sit in that conversation, and what that does is that breaks trust immediately with the business and finance, right?
Yeah.
And it takes moments like that. And I've been in those situations. I've been there where I'm like, man, now they're like, okay, do we make the right decision? Then you got to go back through the wheels. And now you got to go back and say, here's all the changes that I made and all the updates to now get to a more fruitful conversation. And this is where I think technology becomes super important for finance teams. But it's also when you look at the spectrum of technology, I like to look at it this way. You got over here, you got finance, you got accounting, right? We are typically laggers in adopting new technology, right? Then you've got other areas of the organization out here, and a new technology comes up next week, and they're like, we need to go do it. We need to see it. We need to like be a part of it.
That's right.
So my balance and talking about this whole technology shift that finance, to me, it's a mindset that finance teams need to have. But why technology and why now for finance? So my question to you is, where do you see the instant impacts on visibility and insights that a centralized platform like Airbase can have for finance teams?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so I think one of the biggest reasons why organizations even came to Airbase was that they may have come with a problem. Like, I have an AP automation problem. I'm dealing with all these invoices. I need to make payments internationally. They may come with that, but they really buy into the vision of, wait, you can consolidate all of that spend, not just my AP, but my expenses and my cards all in one platform. That's an amazing story. And obviously, you see my background. It says Paylocity. Airbase was just acquired by Paylocity, one of the largest HCM providers in the United States, globally in the world, public company. Now we bring in, and that's why I love the vision of this, all of the spending, all non-payroll spending and payroll spending through one pane of glass. And so that's what we're really excited about. And that's truly, now you're truly going to know across marketing. I use the marketing team example. Not only all of the things that I'm spending on, but also all of my cost on headcount. So now I'll truly have a deep understanding, real time, about where the money in the business is going for us to go ahead and prioritize. Where do we need to invest in? Where do we need to look at our line items on spend? Where do we need to maybe renegotiate contracts with pull back spend so we can invest more in headcount potentially? So now truly the opportunity for all of the company spending through a single pane of glass is actually feasible. And I think that's the direction. By the way, this is not uncommon. You look at other industries across the board, you use marketing as an example, or even sales kind of tools. Consolidation is happening across various industries and categories because it makes sense. Like even when we talk about, we're talking about controlling spend, one of the biggest things immediately that our customers get is an immediate ROI. Why do I need to spend money on an Expensify and then a Bill.com and then a corporate card solution? I'm paying 3 or 4 vendors to manage my spend. Wait, why don't I just pay one vendor, manage it all? I'm going to save 50, 60% of the cost right away. And then I'm going to have, we talked about the spend culture, an intuitive user interface that's consistent no matter what type of spend is happening. So Sondren doesn't have to figure out one app in a different way of doing things for expenses.
Oh, that's huge.
Else for corporate cards. Oh, I have an invoice, so I have to upload it to this other tool. And what is the rules and process around this? It's a different app, different way it works. Like, it's just a complete nightmare. So I think the big part of the value is, the value add on the consolidation, the data, the strategic visibility. But then we talked about how we kicked off this conversation. This spend culture is allowed to happen much more without all that friction when it's an intuitive single solution that manages it all. So I know I can go to one place. I can see my payroll. I can see when I'm going to be reimbursed for my expenses. I can see the limit to my corporate card that I have. It's a $500 limit. All of this is in one intuitive platform. that's the direction I think the industry is going. Obviously the investment Paylocity made in the acquisition just speaks to that. And it's something I hear from customers all the time. It's like, you have to make it dead easy. And my mom is going to struggle to go through 4 different apps, okay, to manage all of this. I would struggle too. I do struggle too. And so having one solution, make it as super simple for all your stakeholders to get the work that they needed done while you maintain that visibility and control through technology and automation and intelligent insight, and you're golden. Then the office of the CFO now can really start playing that strategic role in the business that they all signed up for. Like, yeah. Chris, I'll use this as an example. This is what got me into accounting and finance when I was, back in university. The CPA organization, and maybe there's some Canadians watching, they had ads of like being super strategic, a helicopter pointing. It was like very strategy mindset. But the reality was we were ground down by all this manual work and we never got to realize that. So I'm really proud that I see organizations coming to, any realization, whatever tool they pick, to make the investments that are required to have that realization come to fruition of why they got into this in the first place.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful to see, man. And I loved your point about making it the user. So many times with technology adoption, right? I call it like the 3 I's of where I've worked with clients and I've actually implemented technology where it's been really, really good, right? Mm-hmm. It's the introduction to the technology, right? Hey, we're introducing it to the organization. Maybe that's through a Teams chat, or you have a company on hands where you're talking about the technology. Then you implement it, right? So you implement the tool and go through it. And most finance teams, when they adopt any new technology, whether it's spin, that's the 2 steps that they go through, right? But the third step, I think, is the most important to get that broader adoption. You have to integrate it in part of your decision making, right? Mm-hmm. So as an example, I would go through and we work with organizations and we say, okay, here's a client. We implemented a great tool, and now we want to make sure that when they make decisions or they hold strategic meetings with their leadership team, they're leveraging that tool, right? What better way when you're making that collaboration to say, hey, I want to introduce everybody to Airbase, a centralized tool to get all the visibility, all compliance, get all your spend in one place, move away from those point solutions and move to a platform adoption, right? Mm-hmm. And then also now you get that ability to implement it and work with a best-in-class implementation team. And now you say, hey, guys, when we have our strategic decisions, our North Star is going to be looking at this dashboard to see where we're at. Where we say we're going to be, where are we at, and what are we going to do about it, right? Now you've integrated it, right? You've integrated it's on websites. People have visibility into it. People are now not having to wait to the end of the month to get their reports. They're like, they can be, now you've empowered the business to be more actionable, because now their North Star is to say, when we all make decisions to say, hey, I want to hire this new person, or I want to invest in this marketing campaign, or I want to invest in these new servers for our data and our software, right? Now where you can make that investment, everybody centralized to one place that everybody goes to make those decisions. Exactly. And here's the superpower. Here's the super saiyan power, right? Here's where you go super saiyan on inside the business, right? You're able to say finance helped contribute this whole ecosystem of clarity, collaboration, ability for everybody to make decisions based off of their own data that they understand. Yeah. It's super easy that, you can understand it. And you hit it. So many other solutions is like different ways. If you work with this tool, I got to email it to this email address. If I do it here, I got to scan it. It's all these different things. And people were being pulled in so many different directions. So centralizing that tool and adopting that technology, that's how I'm making a broad claim on February 11, 2025 at 12:38 Eastern Standard Time. The only way, and I'm saying this, remember it was said.
I'm going to remember
the only way finance teams scale for the future is we have to love technology, period. Yes, that's it. Totally. That's it. We do not, finance doesn't scale to throw people at problems that technologies can solve. Let's take a 5-second pause for those CFOs that continue to throw people at problems that technology can solve, because that's the future. That's exactly where everything's going. I loved your vision of looking at the centralization, because it is hard. You may be that finance, accounting, controller person looking at this and saying, Chris, man, I get inundated with LinkedIn messages. There's all kind of solutions. Like, how do I pick? So that's one of my questions. I want to give that tidbit, right? For CFOs, for accounting, controllers, staff accountants, accounting, everybody in the office of the CFO, they're naturally inundated with all different kind of technologies. So for your expertise and knowledge, where's that first place for them to start? Like if they're going down their tech journey, they're like, I want to be a strategic partner. I want to contribute to spin culture. I want to be everything that we've talked about. What's that first step to get them down the road of that technology adoption?
That's a great question. And I think a lot of our customers go through the same thinking. And what they do is they will start and solve for the biggest problem that they have now, but they'll buy into the vision. So a lot of our customers come and they say, again, a majority of their spend goes through AP. So they'll start with AP, but they're buying into a platform where the vision and the plan is to consolidate all of that spending in one solution, right? Because we realize not a lot of companies can do it all. Some can. Some will say, you know what? Completely, let's start. I want the entire consolidated solution, and they will go through that. But a lot of companies, especially the larger companies, will say, let's have a plan. Let's go start with AP. Let's go start with expense. Let's go start with cards. And over time, build up everything else so that we meet to that vision. So I would say, do not be hamstringed by the fact that you can't take it all at once. You don't have to do it all at once. You can just start with something now, and into the solution that you evaluate, do they have that ability to not only, we talked about meeting all of the non-payroll needs, but the depth of your requirements.
That's important. That's important.
Do you have multiple subsidiaries? Do they need to connect to multiple bank accounts? Are you paying vendors internationally? Do you have employees internationally? Make sure that you really understand your use cases and requirements. Make sure that that vendor can meet your needs today, but also question about their product roadmap. Where are they investing? Are those investments going to be accretive to you in the way your business is growing and the way your requirements are going to evolve? So I'd say don't be hamstrung on trying to do it all at once. Start with something, get in. I think that's a good life advice in general. Start somewhere, continue to drive and add in everything else. Don't be strung by perfect inaction over imperfect inaction.
Absolutely agree, man. 100%. And I would add to what you just said. I think one of the other things I would say when you're looking at that decision-making process is think about the tool, how a lot of times you go into tools and you outgrow them, right?
Yeah.
That's a common problem, right? Maybe you get, like you said, the multiple subsidiary, you start dealing with other currency, you start hiring people. Make sure when you're thinking about, don't think about the solution that solves the problems only that you have now. Think about, and this is where vision comes in. This is where you got to think about the organization and where are we going to be in 5 to 10 to 15 years. Maybe we acquire businesses. How does the consolidation work? Does that even take a second, right? Make sure you're thinking about your tech strategy, not for just the pains and frustrations that you solve now, but you're adopting tools and technology that are going to scale with your business as you scale. I see that all the time. Finance people, they see that fancy Lamborghini, right? That fancy technology that's a Lamborghini, and they're like, it has all this stuff. It's awesome. Yeah. But it's like you've got that Lamborghini in a school zone. Like, why would you have a $150,000 car that you've got it operating in? It can go 35 miles an hour in a school zone, right?
That's a great analogy. I'm going to use that in the future.
Use it, right? But that's a common, think about how am I adopting this technology for all the benefits that we talked about? But then also how am I, and challenge the I challenge software providers all the time. Like, well, what did this happen? What's your solution for that? And the moment that I get this, well, yeah, that's on our product roadmap. I'm like, well, how do I have visibility in that? How do I know? When is that going to be, right? So think about that piece. You cannot just only think about the pains and frustrations you're solving now. Yep. Think about how that technology adopts and grows with you. So, hey, man, love this conversation. My final question that I have for you, and then we'll add that as a final piece of it, is when you think about spend management, what's your, like, we're doing a little vision broadcasting for us, right? What does spend management and the centralized platform for the next 5 to 10 years, what does that look like for CFOs, accounting, and finance professionals?
Ooh, I think machine learning has done a lot to automate a lot of what they have to do in terms of the manual work. I really see, especially generative AI, like we're using generative AI right now, and so much of the use cases I mentioned, expense reports can be completely touchless. Like you don't have to actually do anything outside of taking pictures. That's because generative AI kind of bridged the gap. Let's say with previous technologies on the automation front, it got 70% of the way there. But I think now actually generative AI, and this is why for the office of the CFO, the technologies that we have today are going to really automate and change the way that CFOs and the office of the CFO works within businesses. So I really see a future where a lot of this stuff is not only automated, the workflows for like accounting teams. I'm talking about the deep workflows, like the reconciliation. Also, a lot of this is going to be fully automated. And I think even for the end user experience, I think we're going to see a world where essentially for if I need to require spend, I will integrate or somehow communicate with my computer, whether that's through voice or a natural language process chat window where I say I need to spend this, and automatically all of the requirements that I need to provide based on the business's rules and approval workflows and what IT needs from me, legal, etc., will be fully automated in the process. So I think technology is going to really reduce the friction of enabling organizations to spend while also giving accounting and finance teams unprecedented insight and control over their business at the same time. And that's why I think it's more important than ever that technology is being used by the office of the CFO, because I think we're at this inflection point right now where we're going to see this significant gain in productivity, efficiency, visibility, value that the office of CFO can provide with the technologies that's available today. And it'll never get worse than this, Chris. It's only going
to let's go. It's only hey, CFOs, accounting professionals, finance pros, it's only up from here. Get through that technology, get that adoption. I love that vision where now we're getting these practical use cases of generative AI and other AI solutions like OCR. I see a vision where there's prescriptive data. Think about like that payroll entry that you do, or that entries that you do all the time, right? That could be prescriptive and predictive based on the history. So now you get machine learning, you get prescriptive and predictive analytics, you get OCR in there. You know, we're also incorporating, I see in a broader aspect of generative AI where it's now augmentation of like our vision and our hearing. I can see a future where I got glasses on, I can take a picture of it, I could be at a conference talking about it, I'm talking, it's giving everything for me.
That's right.
And what better time? So I think for me, the takeaway is CFOs, accounting, finance professionals, controllers, get down the road of getting technology and getting that adoption. I want to share what Darcy said. You know, if you're all these things that we talked about, the generative AI, the central solutions, the OCR, the collaboration, the bringing in all your spin. If this has been interesting to you, make sure to jam. I've got that on the screen right now. Check out airbase.com/product-tours. Check that out. That'll give you that instant visibility into that to be able to go see. Hey, man, wrapping this up. If people want to learn more about you, connect with you, I love your energy. I knew this was going to be amazing, bro. If they want to learn more about you, connect. How do they find you?
Find me on LinkedIn. I think there's only one Sondran that I'm aware of, so it'll be pretty easy to find me. Just spell the name right and we can connect.
Yeah, the best one. If there's other ones, you're the best one, dude.
I appreciate that, Chris. Thanks for having me on. Honestly, I really
awesome. Yeah. So, hey, thanks for everybody being part of this great conversation. If you found value from this conversation, make sure to subscribe, connect with us, follow Airbase on their LinkedIn page, send this to your accounting, finance, controller, FP&A, CFO professionals so they can get some value out of it. Also, I wanted you to stay tuned for March 12th at 12 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be kind of diving in and moving from point solutions to platform adoptions. That's another conversation with myself, my good friend Laurent, and Kelly Hicks, who's the controller at Airbase. We're going to have a conversation with that. I'm going to make sure to drop a link to that registration for that webinar for you to attend here. Sondran, man, thank you for your time, bro. Thank you for your energy. And from one sane brother to another one, man, our power levels went crazy on this one, man.
Love it, man. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Thank you, guys. See ya.